The city of New York is by far the greatest of all. New York City culture is one of relentless ambition, filled with people whose drive knows no limits, and these are their stories. This is New York City Pulse. Hello, New York, and welcome to episode number 3 of New York City Pulse. I'm Zane, and today I'm joined by real estate broker, style icon, Christopher Korey. Christopher, thanks for coming on the show today.
The pleasure's completely mine.
Bring us back to the early days, like your childhood. Were you originally from Manhattan?
I am born and raised in New York.
And
lived to tell about it. And New York was a very different city back then.
Right.
We're talking, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And as New York progressed, so did I. And my sister and I were both born and raised here, and it was a very fast and exciting childhood, to say the least. Well, look, I was hanging out at Studio 54 when I was 14 years old, so you see quite a bit, and you grow up very fast, and you sort of get a quick education. I would say street smarts it's the school of New York.
Yeah.
You become educated in a lot of things very quickly, and you grow up very fast, very different than sort of a normal childhood, something out in the suburbs or something like that. It has its pros and cons, but all in all, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Do you feel that the upbringing here in New York in your childhood has given you an edge now?
No question. Again, it comes down to street smarts, and because everything is so accelerated in terms of how you grow up, you're very able to discern what you like and what you don't like very quickly, and what is dangerous and not dangerous very quickly, and groups you want to be with and people you want to be with. And New York is an amazing city, and it's a melting pot of everybody comes here with the idea of becoming who they really are. And it's an aspirational city. And so, I grew up with a lot of different cultures. There were, a lot of different skin tones in my life, and that was the beauty of it, that nobody really looked the same, and everybody brought something new to the table, something different, something interesting.
And a different and interesting perspective, too, and then maybe can accelerate the growth also.
Absolutely, and so you're exposed to quite a bit,
Yeah.
and that in and of itself is priceless. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so you said you had one sister, or was it two?
I have one sister.
One sister,
Yeah.
Okay. So there were two of you growing up.
There are 2 Koreys in the world. That's about all the world can handle.
2 Koreys.
You don't want any more of us running around.
Right. Okay. So 2 Koreys, and were you the older brother or the younger brother?
I am the younger brother. My sister, who is the greatest sister in the world, is 5 years older than I am.
5 years older. Okay. And what was it like at home? Was there a strong influence with style at home?
Both my parents were divorced when we were very young, but both individually had incredible style and taste. I can only hope to live up to their standard. They both phenomenally tasteful and chic in terms of their style, their philosophy, their sense of humor, their everything. Just I'm very, very fortunate.
And I'm curious, actually, because my parents, they split when I was young also.
Okay.
Did you live with your mother, your father?
Lived with my mother, yeah. My mother...
Mothers always win.
I
lived with my mother also.
Always.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate that, you got to see 2 different kinds of life. My father was here in New York living as a bachelor at that time. We'd spend the weekends with him, and we'd be with my mother, my mother is a very sort of well-known, accomplished woman. She's one of the first women to start her own ad agency.
Wow.
Yeah, and when she was at a very early age, she was the only female writer for The Tonight Show.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And this was even in more difficult times than today. So.
Listen, if you ever watched Mad Men and you see what it was and especially for women
for
during
Peggy,
that time.
I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is largely based on my mother. That was her experience, and even much more so. I mean, it's very watered down for television, but it's quite incredible what she accomplished in a man's world as a woman, and I always had the utmost respect for her for what she had to go through.
Both for business and on a personal level, what values do you feel that, either by demonstration or by telling you outright, what values did your mother share with you?
Overcoming fear.
Overcoming fear.
Yes, she was a big believer, and so am I, that fear is the greatest handicap of most people. And she instilled in me at a very early age. She used to tell me all the time, if I was hesitant about doing something or worried about something, she would say the same thing all the time, and that's it. Will it kill you? Will you die if things don't go well? Because the answer was no. And she said, then you'll be fine. And I sort of carried that through life, and it served me extremely well.
Yeah. I read somewhere that fear was only, back thousands of years ago, people were only afraid of things if it would actually, kill them.
Yeah.
Now we're afraid of things like judgment, we're afraid of rejection, we're afraid of looking silly, or saying the wrong thing. But so, back in those days, what were some of the things that were holding you back and making you fearful of certain things that your mother came in and made sure that didn't stop you for good?
I think with all, especially kids.
Was this in your teen years, early 20s?
I would say it was even before that. It was
before
even,
then?
Yeah, when I would be, as a young child in school, I think human beings have a sort of innate fear of failure, and you also don't want to disappoint your parents, and you want to achieve all these things. And failing is actually the best thing that can happen to you. I've never really learned anything by success. Where you really learn is the school of hard knocks, the school of falling flat on your face and knowing what not to do next time. So I feel like that's a much more valuable tool.
Failure.
Failure, yeah. I think you should actually try and fail as much as you possibly can.
Deliberately.
Absolutely. You should go in thinking this is going to be a disaster. And you'd be pleasantly surprised at how little of a disaster it is, and what you can learn from the things that went terribly wrong, and how that helps you grow, both as a person, personally and professionally.
So what would you say, looking back at your time in business, how old were you when you first got into business?
I've always sort of worked since my first job was at the video rental store. That's when
Blockbuster?
It's pre-Blockbuster. It was the neighborhood.
This is back.
This is back. This is back. This is VHS, my friend.
What's that?
Exactly. And I used to deliver for that. I guess I've been working since I'm about 13 years old.
13.
Yeah.
Okay, and so in this time from 13 until now, what would you say was a failure or maybe a challenge that has shaped you the most, that you learned the most from?
In each business that I've ever been in, there have been failures along the way. I don't know if there was one galactic failure that, at the time, all the little failures seemed like the most apocalyptic thing in the world. And you think, oh my God, this is the end. But again, I would go back to what my mother would say, is that, unless literally death is the outcome, you're going to be fine. You figure it out. Growing up here in New York and all the things that we've just talked about, the one thing you come away with is, in some way, shape, or form, you're going to figure it out. It may not be easy, and it could be extremely difficult, and you may go through ultimate trials and tribulations, but some way, somehow, you're going to figure it out, and when you do, you're going to find out exactly who you really are. By problem solving, you'd be surprised at just how capable you are. Much more so. You're much stronger than you think you are. You're much more capable than you think you are. And you're also much more adept at solving problems that you could never have imagined would arise in your life. And those things shape you.
Yeah.
They become you.
Yeah. But sometimes you run into these obstacles that in the moment it feels insurmountable, right?
No question.
But it's always in hindsight that you realize it was only just a minor hiccup, right? But
Right.
how do you maintain in the moment? How do you maintain a level head where you're able to, not let that, the fear or being overwhelmed by the obstacle, not let that cloud your judgment?
It's perspective. It's you keep everything in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't close the deal, or because you lost the listing, or you're anything, or you're having problems with some person in your life, or what, it's perspective. You have to sort of think about, here's what didn't happen. You didn't get the call that said, I'm sorry, you have 6 months to live. Okay, if you start working it backwards from there, you will find that the problems in your life, there are millions of people in hospitals and terrible situations all over the city who would trade places with you in a second with the problems that you have. If you take a moment and consider them and you get it off yourself, you'd be surprised at how fast your problems that seemed like mountains become little bumps in a minute.
Okay, where'd you do your schooling?
I hopped from every school known to man. Never graduated from college.
Really?
No, I didn't. I originally went to art school.
Art school.
I got accepted to Parsons Art School. Which
Studying what specifically?
Illustration, graphic design, and interior design. I literally, the night before I had to submit a portfolio, you're supposed to submit like 12 pieces or something like that. I had 0. And I stayed up all night and whipped together a portfolio, and these crazy people looked at it and said, oh, you might have some talent. And then I was in school in Los Angeles for a while. I went to had to go to Santa Monica College so that I could go to UCLA as a resident. And then I came back here and went to School of Visual Arts. And all of them I got bored very quickly. And it was very unusual for me, like, not to be working and going to school. And I was very frustrated by school. And so eventually I just went out on
What
my own.
frustrated you about it, though?
Being young, and I was young and restless and wanted to get going and didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I know I wanted to get started.
Yeah.
And I felt sort of held back by school. Art school was a different experience. Art school was, I felt constricted by what they were telling me to. They want you to be free and express yourself, but within a certain parameter.
Their box.
Exactly. And I was like, well, that's not really free, is it? That's
yeah.
sort of free-ish. And I didn't like that very much. I wanted to do, I'm a very stubborn guy, and I like things
You a
my
Taurus?
way. I'm Aries.
Aries.
Actually, yeah.
Ooh, okay.
It's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like things my way, and I like them a certain way, and if they're not that way, I tend to get frustrated, and I want to make it right, and I want to, so yeah. That was school.
How did you get into the real estate business? Was that something you've always aspired to? I mean, living in New York?
No. As most things happened in my life, I got into it by accident, literally tripping over it. I went to school, interior design. When I left school, I didn't know how I was going to get interior design clients, jobs. So I thought, a brilliant idea. I'll go to real estate school. I'll sell them the apartment, and then it'll need work, and I'll come in there, and I could somehow use that to launch like an interior design business or some sort of creative business. What happened to me is very unusual in real estate, as you well know. I sold a lot of apartments right out of the box, which was amazing to me, but it just sort of fell into place, and I was super, super fortunate. and it just sort of grew. And I remember I worked for a little mom and pop shop in Murray Hill, and it was a couple who owned it, and the woman who was part of the team, she was a selling machine, and I would watch her, and she did things that I would never do in a way that I would never do them, but it was a great learning experience, learning what not to do and learning and then the first day that I could go out on my own and I got my broker's license, I hung a shingle outside and thought, I'm going to tank in 6 months, but I want to do it my way.
Yeah.
And it's 22 years later, and the shingle's still outside, and did okay. Yeah.
There we go. And then this goes back to, remember what you said earlier about being stubborn and wanting things done
No
your
question.
way, the Christopher Korey way.
No question. Also, in conquering fear.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Well, were you afraid of opening up your own brokerage?
Absolutely. I thought, I'll be gobbled up by Douglas Elliman in 6 months because, this will never work. And back then, there were more independent brokers, but, it was the exception rather than the rule. This is before the internet. This is before, you would stand at a payphone with a roll of quarters, cold calling people, trying to get listings.
In the street?
In the street. That's how we did it back then, brother. Yeah. Which every broker in this town or salesperson in this town should do now as a learning experience, because their social skills absolutely suck.
Yeah.
But it was great training ground, and I was terribly fearful, but as my mother taught me, if you're scared, it's probably the right move. So you head right towards what you're scared of, and you do it. And I was very fortunate; it worked out.
Yeah. Well, what happened to interior design? Did you?
It's sort
close
of
all those deals. Those are
what?
back-end transactions.
I did some interior design jobs along the way. It actually worked out that way, where a lot of my clients who I sold apartments to wanted me to handle the interior design. And then one of my best friends now is one of the top interior design people in New York, and now I just pass it off to him because he's far more talented than I am. But I enjoyed it, and then once I actually started doing it, which happens a lot in life, once I started doing it, I found I didn't love it as much as I thought I did. It was interesting and it was fun, but I would get bored of it very quickly, and I would want to move on to the next project and whatever, But as long as everybody was happy, I was happy. But I didn't love it. I liked it a lot, but I didn't love it.
It didn't have enough hustle, go.
It was a
quick
lot of
culture to it.
It was a lot of making a lot of concessions and settling for things and working within certain parameters, and it was great, and I have the utmost respect for the people who do it. I didn't love it as much as I thought it would.
See, but now that makes sense, because remember we were just talking earlier about how even as a kid growing up, you were always restless, and in school you wanted to go.
That's it.
So
that's how you find.
If you don't get that adrenaline rush in what
Absolutely.
you're doing, you can't see that long term.
That's how you find who you are. As you know, you spend a great deal of time with your clients. You become a member of the family. You become their psychologist, their marriage counselor, they're all in one, their confidant. You just, you grow very close. You're spending so much time with them, and they're making probably the biggest financial decision of their life at that time. So there's a lot of hand-holding. There's a lot. You become very close, and I'm super fortunate in that I've had the same clients for 20 some odd years, and they'll trust me, which I'm truly thankful for, and they all become fast friends. I mean, we go to dinner, we hang out, and I'm beyond love you. But because you become so close with them, questions would come up. Like, where did you get your suit? Where did you get those shoes? I wish I could wear that. These type of things. And eventually, what happened is I started styling my clients. We would go shopping. I would take them to my tailor to have things made, and it sort of grew as a side business. And as it grew, it sort of started taking over the real estate business, and I was juggling both, and it got like a little crazy, but it was good. And then my business partner, who was my tailor,
What's his name?
Carl.
Carl.
Come from a Sicilian family. His father is a master tailor, and the genes have passed down through to Carl, and we've been friends for a long time. And we sort of joked about doing something together, because I would bring my styling clients in or just send them to him. And then I have to say, through social media, it took on a life of its own. I was the last guy on Instagram. I didn't want to be on any kind of social media, but Instagram was sort of the easiest to use and the most visual, which I liked. But what I saw was a sort of a medium of lack. People would look on Instagram and see everything they didn't have, which I thought was not great. You know, some sort of Kardashian-like thing where they would look at someone else's life and feel bad about their own. That I didn't like. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, I would at least want to promote something positive, so that it would be the antidote to that. I didn't want to be lumped in with that, and I thought, if you have that many eyes on you, how do you not use it to help somebody, or just give them a helping hand, or encourage them, or help them through a tough period in their life? So I thought of, okay, if I could find a way to marry the two, I'd try it, and at least I'd be on it, and then when people ask me, I could say, yes, I'm on Instagram, you know. Then I don't know what happened. It just went nuts. And to this day, I'm shocked that other than my sister and 4 friends, anybody follows me.
Right.
But it took on a life of its own. And then what happened is people started coming in to Carl, my tailor, with pictures on the phone saying, "You made this?" He would say yes. And I said, "Can you make me that?" And he said yes. And then it started picking up and picking up and picking up. And then he called me one day and he said, yeah, we got to do something, because this is getting crazy. And it really was getting crazy. People were coming from all over the world, from Dubai, London. I mean, it was nuts. And then we were toying with the idea of opening sort of a showroom space in their existing workshop.
Where is their existing workshop?
61st and Lexington Avenue.
61 and Lex.
Yeah.
It's like right here. It's
Yeah.
close by.
L&S Tailors. They've been there 44 years. It's a beautiful space. It's all window, and we could carve out a little space, and it's one of the few remaining real tailor shops in New York. I mean, you can see your stuff being made by human hands in that shop, by artisans, the people who care about craft. It's the clothing industry these days is very fragmented with a lot of crap out there, and which is why they've been my tailor for 100 years, because I know the quality. And so we said, okay, we'll just open up a showroom space there, and we'll take appointments, and we'll style people, and we'll fit them, and design a line, and maybe, you know, an aesthetic that I like, that was finely crafted. It'd be great. One day he called me, and his father, who's the tailor, had a friend in this space who was a tailor who was retiring. And as I told you earlier, when he called me, he said, "We can open up a retail shop." That's so not happening.
How long ago did he call you, by the way? This is recent, isn't it?
This was, I would say,
just last
a little
year?
over a year ago.
Yeah, okay.
When he called, and I just said, out of curiosity, where is this space that I'm not opening? And he said, it's across the street from the Peninsula Hotel. And I was in a meeting at the Peninsula Hotel
right.
when I got this. So he said, come on, just poke our heads. And we did. And when we did, there was some magic that happened, and all the stars aligned, and here we are.
There we go.
And here we are, and we're very, very fortunate.
How long did it take you to actually, design the space, fix it, make it yours?
I had a lot of help from my good friend and interior designer, Rob Pasal. Who is is a incredible interior designer, and he knows me very well, and he knows what I like and whatever. And I gave him the frame of what I liked, and he helped me fill in the blanks. And it's sort of, spaces much like clothing and people speak to you. Like, I can look at someone and see what's right for them in terms of their style, and the spaces are very much the same thing. You dress a space like you dress someone. And this particular space, we were able to marry what we're about, which is classic clothing for both men and women, or crazy clothing for both men and women. We can do both. Oh yeah, I forgot the timer.
Oh, there's a timer on the lights.
There's a timer on the lights.
All right. Is it off for good? How do
No,
we
I
turn
can
it back on?
get you about right back
There
on.
we go. Cut. So let's talk about values. As you're running your day-to-day between brokerage and your clients, styling, what are some of the values that are important in the way you do business?
Actually, they're very similar, both in the brokerage, on the real estate side, and in here. It's all about authenticity. Authenticity. I find people looking at apartments or looking at clothing fall into a trap of what they think they should have or what they saw someone else have.
This goes back to the approval thing that you were just talking
Absolutely,
about.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's not about what your friends have or what your friends are going to like or people or family or whatever. It has to be who you really are. I'm notorious, whether it be clothing or apartments, is talking people out of places. Because someone can walk into a space and say, oh my God, I love it. It's this, but is it you? Which 9 times out of 10, it's not. They like the idea of it, but it's not, it's an overused term, especially in the clothing industry, which is called bespoke. Bespoke is something that's made exactly for you. And I tried to, on the real estate side, and both in this shop, get people to be who they really are. You're going to be much happier over the long term being authentic to yourself. You're much more comfortable in your clothes and in your home if it's really you, not the idea, not what you saw in a magazine, not what you think is the ideal, or you saw your friends have this amazing thing. It's something that's really you. And if we can capture that both in their home and on their body, you've nailed it. And once they get it, they never go back. That's it. Now you've opened the box and they're free to be them. And
because they can't go back because it's authentic to them.
Exactly. And we all have very different fingerprints, right? There are, no two are the same. There's a reason for that. There's not two of you. There's not two of me. Relish that there's just one of you. If I told you that there was just one diamond or one watch in the world, it's invaluable, right? It's precious. That's you. You need to treat yourself and those type of things with care and appreciate them.
Yeah. It's funny that you say authenticity, because it came up a few times while we just walked in and we were looking around the shop, and you were really emphasizing authenticity. So, like, where did something happen, or what has caused this such strong observance of authenticity?
I would say, as society and the world started becoming the same, it's sort of homogenized and watered down. What's great about the world, what's great about this city, is the differences and the uniqueness. When everything starts to look the same, this is part of the problem. Fashion is great, and fashion actually is amazing for marking time in history. You can look at things from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s in clothing, and you can tell the era in which it is because it was the fashion of the time. But what's happened recently is fashion has become only fashion with no style, and it changes every 2 minutes. And people, like sheep, start to follow the trend of whatever the fashion is at the time. It sort of waters down what's fabulous about you. Not that you can't apply that fashion to yourself, but you become looking like the person who's standing next to you. Mm-hmm. You're all carrying the same bag, you're wearing the same shoes, you're doing, it's not bringing out the best of you. You're being accepted because you're in fashion or on trend, but it doesn't bring out what's unique and special about you. Mm-hmm. That's when I think, as that started to develop in society, that's when I think I became much more aware of being authentically me. Also comes with age. I mean, quite honestly, in your 20s, you can't find the couch in the living room. You're searching for who you are. Women, much less so than men. Men tend to be a little slower on the uptake. Women are the better sex. Mm-hmm. But you find as you get older, you become a great editor. Mm-hmm. You know what you like and what you don't like. And the older you get, your editing skills are finely honed. And then you find out who you really are. And then you take that knowledge and you move forward with the rest of your life. It's sort of like you have two lives. The life you learn with and the life you live with after that. Yeah.
That's deep. So, but how do we speed up this process, Because I'm in my 20s now, I'm 21.
Right.
So how do we get there quicker?
21
there are a lot of other 21-year-olds out here. So
no question.
How do we all get there quicker?
You don't. You have to learn.
So time is
time and experience. But I will say this, which definitely does work in your favor. Your 21 is very different than my 21.
How so?
To your credit, there are pros and cons.
Right,
Let's go with the pros. The pros are you are much more advanced at your 21 than I was at my 21. Mm-hmm. I think as the generations have moved on, they become smarter and smarter. A kid pops out of the womb now knowing how to use an iPad. Yeah. I mean, we weren't that advanced at my age. The vocabulary, everything is much more advanced than when I was 21. Mm-hmm. So you have that as a base to launch from. So you're already ahead of the game in that way. There are some cons in that you grew up in an era of the cell phone and whatever, which can in some ways impede your social skills and whatever, but the tried and true formula of life that still held true for my generation and your generation is experience and things that happen to you. Don't be afraid to try everything. There is no speeding it up. Mm-hmm. The only way you can somewhat speed it up is do as much as you can.
Add on the experiences.
Everything. And fall on your ass.
Yeah.
Falling on your ass is going to be the best thing to ever happen to you. Fall in love 5 times. Get your heart broken. Fall on your ass. Fail at something. Yeah. All these things, which seem horrific at the time, are the best thing to ever happen to you. Mm-hmm. And then you appreciate the good times more. You appreciate the next time you're in love much more. Your experiences are far more educational than anything else that could happen to you, by far.
So I'm getting a sense that you're rooted in this very like a solid foundation of confidence, right? Does that come from all of the experience from the past and trying things and failing and correcting and recognizing that, okay, this is something I've seen before, so now
I think confidence comes from knowing who you are. I think that's the ultimate confidence, is being comfortable with yourself. If you're not comfortable with yourself, you're never going to be confident in anything. You'll always be second guessing, and you'll always be longing for the approval of others. Confidence, most of the time, I would say, comes from not caring about what you think rather than the approval of someone else. Once you get there, the sky is the limit. It's really up to you. And you find that that is the biggest churn as you get older. You'll see that much more was in your control than you originally believed. And once you gain some confidence, you then see how true that actually is. You're more confident in trying different things. You're a bigger risk taker, knowing that the risk wasn't as monumental as you once thought. And you actually appreciate it much more when you get to wherever it is you're trying to get to, which, by the way, is nowhere. You should understand, I get this a lot from young people, which is preposterous, by the way. They say, well, that's easy for you to say. You're already there. I say the same thing to them all the time. Where do you think there is? So, well, you've made it. What? What is it? What have you made? You don't get to some place in life and say, I'm good.
Enough.
Good. Enough.
Finished.
Right. We can stop here.
Retired.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Yeah. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to eat anymore. I don't need to try any new things. I've had it all. That never happens.
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain level, you want the next level. And
You're always growing.
You're always growing, and you want to experience new things and different things, and you want to. There's no there. There's never a there. And what I tell young people is, just focus on today. Stop thinking about, I want to get here by the time I'm X, because I'm going to tell you something right now. That's not happening. It's one of the best sayings in the world. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Because let me tell you, not happening. You think you're going from A to B? You're going A, B, C. You're going all.
See,
over.
but it's tough not to have that macro picture in your mind all the time. Like it's.
But the macro is going to change, and by the time you think you get there, the macro has changed. The world has changed. If I told real estate brokers 20 years ago that there would be a system where you could look at apartments on a screen
in your hand
with a floor plan. Yeah, come on.
No way.
We used to have to go to the real estate library. They had giant books.
I never heard of this.
Exactly.
Wait, what is this?
Knowledge.
Yeah.
History. We used to have to go to the real estate library, which was on 42nd Street, that had these giant books. It was called the Select Register.
Yeah.
Of every building in New York. And if you wanted a floor plan, you had to make an appointment, go there, open the book, look it up, like, you do in the library. You been to a library? Yes,
Yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah.
Gee, bro, tell me.
Back in my day.
Thank God. Anyway, and you would have to look up the building, go to that book, search through the pages, find that, and then you would have to make a Xerox copy of that, and then take those back to your office and whatever. You could spend the day doing this. Now you hit a button. But if I told people, 25 years ago, that's the way the system was going to work, they would look at me like I had 6 heads, and I would have looked at me that way too. And yet here we are. That macro changed quite a bit.
It did. You mentioned that You have clients who are very, very loyal, and they've been your clients for 20 plus years.
Yep.
How have you been able to instill that loyalty with your clients? What's the relationship like between your clients and you?
I'm very fortunate because, I think they know I don't BS them at all.
So transparency.
Transparency. Also, the last thing on my mind, the last thing on my mind in real estate was the commission. The first thing on my mind was their happiness. Did they have a good experience? Did they get what they wanted? Did everything go as well as it could possibly go? And then, oh yeah, by the way, you get paid for that. If you can keep that mentality, I think you give off that energy and people respond to that. And the referrals that I've gotten in my career have been incredible. My whole business was based on referrals. I never took a full page ad out in the New York Times, or back then we used to carry the newspaper, or now it would be online or in The Real Deal or one of these. No, it was all word of mouth. And I was fortunate enough to have clients who moved in circles that were very influential and affluent, and also I would have to say everybody got the same treatment, whether you were buying a small studio apartment in Riverdale or you were buying a multi-million-dollar apartment on Fifth Avenue. It's your home, and we treat it just that way. It's the most important place in your life. It's your base. I don't care what the size is or what the cost is. You're going to get the best service that I could possibly give you to make sure that you're okay. Plain and simple. And I think that, human beings can be very animalistic in some ways. You give off a scent or a vibe of that, and other human beings pick that up, and they know that you're genuine. And if you're genuine, I feel like even though you may not make the deal right away, and there are other guys who do it differently and do a lot more deals, but if you can look at yourself in the mirror and know that you took care of your people, I feel like the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah. That would be pretty fulfilling. What would you say is the most fulfilling part of your work, whether it's showing clients apartments or helping them with
ultimately
their style?
That they're happy.
Yeah, so
And
happiness.
Happiness, absolutely, and that they had a good experience. They're happy, and it's again authenticity. It's really them. Not a lot of times, especially in real estate, it started out we were looking at one kind of apartment, and then as we went through the process and there was some education involved about who they are and how they really live, it turned out to be a completely different property. And
it always is a completely different property.
Absolutely. It's like life. You aim this way and you end up going this way, and that's where you should be, because that's more you. And that, I have to say, that they're happy, that they came away and they said, that's exactly what I wanted, and they got it.
So like when you're looking for an apartment with your clients, that's like a discovery phase, and then when they actually find the apartment, that's when they found what was authentic to them.
It's more a process of elimination.
And talking them out of properties.
I am notorious for that. I tell people, we'll walk in the door, you know it in 2 seconds. A lot, I tell my clients all the time, looking at real estate is like being on a first date. You know in 3 seconds whether this has potential or not.
Or not.
You know it. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Your gut, this is true of life, by the way, your gut has an amazing track record. It has never been wrong. Whether you listen to it or not is a different story. But whether you walk into the door of an apartment, by the time the door closes, you get a feel. And you know whether you like this space, or there's something about this space, or it's... Now in New York, it's a little different. New York, if it's a maybe, it could be a yes. Because if you have 10 things on your checklist in New York, and we can get 7 out of 10, that's a home run. Because this is New York. If you're looking at a $2 million apartment, the apartment you really want is 3.5. So what we have to do is get the most 3.5 we can in that $2 million apartment. Ratcheting it down. That's the nature of New York. It's a very different town. Other parts of the country, it's much different. You can get 9 out of 10 of what you want, which is amazing, or 10 out of 10. I have no idea. But in New York, it's
There's
a little
some compromise involved.
It's very much so. And, it's like that in a relationship too. But either way, you instinctually know you really have a feel for something and it resonated with you, and there's a certain spark, or there's not. And you have to go with that. Don't talk yourself into things. Whether it's a person or an apartment, sometimes you have things on your checklist and that person or apartment meets everything on your checklist. But if there's no, it's a no. I've shown thousands of apartments where my clients were, oh my God, but it had everything. It had the washer dryer, it had the thing, I love the doorman, whatever. But did you get that? I'm like, no, not really. We gotta go.
Keep looking.
I'll find another.
Yeah.
And we do. True of a person too, but in terms of real estate, that's what you gotta go with. If you don't get that kick in the pants, move on.
Gotta go with your gut.
Totally.
Okay, so aside from intuition, throughout all of your time in business, what would you have wished that the younger you, just starting out, would have known? It doesn't have to be a laundry list, It could just be.
Honestly, the answer is very simple. None of it.
Why?
I wouldn't want to know any of it then, because then I wouldn't have gotten here. If I knew it then, I would have taken a different course. And yes, maybe I would have avoided a ton of the potholes but we come back to those potholes, those train wrecks, those falling flat on your face make you who you are. So I wouldn't trade any of it. I wouldn't, it's the old saying, if I knew then what I know now. If you did, you wouldn't be you now. So just be happy with the you now.
Yeah.
Because all those things made you. Every scar I have, this gray hair on my head, every strand of that hair is a real estate deal.
It's good hair.
I appreciate you. You got good hair.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good hair.
Yeah.
Every strand, every gray hair on my head is a closing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of closings.
There we go.
That's what, or something that happened to you in your life, or some tragedy, or something, or some experience, or whatever. The scars on my body, the thing, I wouldn't trade any of them. That's what made you. That's your life. That's your experience. That's your story to tell.
And that's what's authentic to you and what's helping to mold your character.
It's me, man.
All right, there we go. Alrighty, well, final question, Chris.
Oh boy.
You ready for the final question?
I don't know. Am I?
Christopher Korey is happy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There we go.
I'm a happy guy, I have to say. Which, unfortunately, I'll be quite honest with you, and even people I hold dear to me, not a lot can say that. Yeah, and I feel like the faster you can get there, the better your life becomes. And so whether it be authentic or happy, or one precludes the other, a lucky guy.
There we go. And with that, we end. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode. Bonus content.
Oh my God.
Okay, how did you start the real estate business?
I had no money.
I'm going to take a chocolate, by the way.
Oh, please do.
Right.
No, you're going to need it.
Yeah.
I had no money.
How old were you first?
I was 20... That's a good question. I think I was 29.
29, okay.
I think I was 29. Yeah. I went out with what little money I had, and I bought like 3 or 4 of the best suits I could afford at that time. And I had them cut like within the life of me, looking sharp.
Oh.
And, or what I thought was sharp at the time. Yeah. And I met a friend of mine who was shoe shopping at Barney's, the women's shoe department. And I saw all these people sitting around the shoe department with a lot of money and spending a lot of money. And I thought, there's a client base here. How do I get to them? And I thought, okay, where are they going to eat after this? And where they were going to eat was at the top of Barney's is Fred's. So how I started my real estate business was I went and sat at the bar at Fred's and nursed an iced tea for like 6 hours a day in the best suit that I could afford, and I would wait for people to sit down, and inevitably people would start talking to me and whatever, and a lot of people, we would strike up a conversation and nothing ever came of it. Then one day this woman sat down and we started talking, and she said, I love your suit. I love your suit. You know, what do you do? I said, well, I'm in real estate. She's like, oh, that's very interesting. My husband and I are thinking about selling our apartment. We live on the west side, moving to the east side. I said, really? The card went out. We kept talking. I sold their apartment on Central Park West, and I moved them over to Fifth Avenue, and I started my business with maybe $1,000 in the bank and 5 good suits, nursing an iced tea at the bar at Fred's.
Wow. How long were you doing that before
she
this
sat
happened?
down?
Yeah.
4 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
4 days, but then it takes time for each property to close. You know, you have to
Oh,
sell
that
it,
didn't
and
happen till, I mean, it was months and months later. But then she referred me to 2 of her friends. And then those friends referred me to other friends. And here we are. But it all started with an iced tea at Fred's.
Wow.
I started my business with no money and an iced tea. And a good-looking suit.
That's how it works. That's why you have to dress sharp and come to Chris's shop.
I do believe.
There we
very,
go.
Very important.
Yeah.
That I believe firmly to this day. If you go out in the world, it's a form of good manners to the rest of the world to be looking your best. But I do firmly believe, and I'm living proof of this, that opportunities present themselves to you when you are presenting your best self out there that pass you by when you are not. We live, unfortunately, in a very visual society. People make judgments about you. But not only that, who's your icon? Who is someone that you look up to?
I look up to, in a professional sense, I look up to the top brokers in our field.
Okay, but like someone that you admire so much, even if it's a top broker, and let's say you've never met that person. If you're going out in your, sweatpants and t-shirt and you're sloppy you, and that person is coming down the street, the first thing that's going to pop into your head is, why today? Of all days, why today?
Yeah.
I look like shit, I feel like shit, I don't even want to go up to him or her and say, I'm me, you're you, I admire you. No, you're going to go right by him. Now let's flip it. You just came from a huge closing, you're looking and feeling your best, you leave, that same person is coming down the street. You're thinking to yourself, fuck it, I'm going in. You start talking to that person. The person says, wow, man, you got a lot of balls coming up to me. And, what's your name?
Yeah.
So, you know what, give me your card.
Yeah.
those are two wildly different experiences.
Yeah.
One because you were at your best, one because you weren't. I do not leave my house without being ready for that opportunity. It doesn't happen.
Rules to live by.
Doesn't happen.
And that's kind of how we met, actually, now that I think about it. I think, yeah. Like, I recognized you, and then I was like, oh, you know what?
There you go.
Chris, what's going on?
And now fast forward, and here we are.
Shooting an interview.
Eating chocolate.
Eating chocolate.
And rapping about life.
That's right.
And you know what? You never know what's going to come of all those experiences and interactions in your life. I would hate to go through this journey with a shoulda, coulda, woulda mentality. You know, oh, if I was looking my best that day, I would have gone up to this person, or I should have gone up to them.
Regret.
I don't believe in regret. I believe in you do what you do. And so, if you're always prepared, famous baseball player way before your time, Joe DiMaggio, played for the Yankees. You know Joe DiMaggio, thank God. Okay. Even when he made an out, he sprinted to first base. And a reporter asked him, why do you sprint? You know you're going to be out. Why do you spend the energy sprinting to first base? He said, because there's a kid in the stands on any given day that is seeing me for the first time. And I don't want that kid seeing me for the first time being lazy down to first base. If you take that mentality and go out into the world, you'll always sprint to first base.
That's deep.
This is a therapist.
That's freaking deep.
Should be a therapist too.
God bless
He is
you,
a
brother.
therapist. He's a real estate broker.
Totally. It's an occupational hazard, man.
Oh my God! Wow. No, that's really true.
Man of
That's
many
true.
talents.
No, just a dude. Just a dude.
Yeah, I just like the other. I think it was last weekend or the weekend before. I don't know what I was wearing. I was wearing like sneakers, jeans. I think my hair was a little messy.
Still make it look good.
Yeah, you can still rock it, man. You can still rock it.
I was just going to the corner to pick up Starbucks, you know, on 28th and Park. But oh my God, I saw like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, and I was like, oh
yep.
shit.
And then
This
that
isn't gonna
door
happen.
closed. That door closed.
That door it was never open.
No, no.
There was no opening.
The girl at the bank said to me, I was in there
Should
making.
I keep recording this?
Yeah, why not?
Whatever you want.
I mean, I don't
Whatever,
know.
yeah, you know what, you use whatever you want to call it.
Let it roll.
Alright,
Let it roll.
alright.
Young lady at the bank, I'm in there making a deposit.
Yeah.
It's a bank in my neighborhood, you know, and she says, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. She said, do you work out in that? And I said, you know, is there any other way? She was like, no, seriously. And I said, no. I said, but why do you ask? And she said, because she's, you know, the girls and I, we see you pass by the window every day, and it's every day. Like, you dress like that every day. And I said, yeah. I said, this is, you know, I'm either this or I'm naked. I don't really know in between. And she said, she's like, I admire it, but why?
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, because I never know who I'm going to meet that day. And that person could change my life, or even better, I could change theirs. How do you leave the house anything less than your best?
Mm-hmm.
You never know. It's the beauty of
Especially
life. It's
in
the
this
beauty
city.
of this city.
Exactly.
No question.
Yeah.
Especially here, it's on every corner. It's on every corner.
Literally.
Absolutely. This girl that you pass by, I know. Of all days, right?
Of all days.
Of
That's
all
exactly
days.
what I was thinking. Like,
That's
of
the
all-
worst. That's the worst feeling in the world. See, there's the shoulda, coulda, woulda.
I know.
No. Next time you run into her and you're at your best, go get that woman.
Mm-hmm.
Go get that woman.
Mm-hmm.
Get her, brother.
Done.